Hey guys, before we start this episode, I wanted to talk to you about Type 1 Lifting. So, Type 1 Lifting is a clothing line that proceeds of the shirts and tanks and everything else goes to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. This all came about with me and seeing a 5-year-old girl in the emergency department that had new onset of diabetes. Just take a look at the website. It's www.type1lifting.com. So just check it out. If you don't buy anything, that's perfectly fine. I would just like for you just to take a look and just see what we have. So, like I said before, www.type1lifting.com. And guys, I hope you enjoy the show. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I am super excited about this episode. We have the president of sports for Loud and Live, Matt O'Keefe. How's it going, man?
Oh, dude, it's great to see you, and we're rekindling old flames, so I'm excited to be with you.
Yeah, so for the listeners, I wanted to surprise them on the recording, but I already told them already. So I used to be a bartender at a bar he used to go to because his buddy was one of the managers, and so that's how we've known each other for so long. But this is like the first time in like 15, 20 years that we actually started talking again.
Probably 15 years, and I probably was your worst nightmare back then at Raising Hell at Dillon's in Boston. Man, I go by there all the time now, and I just laugh because of the hell we raised in there. It was such a fun time.
Oh, that was such a blast. Yeah, and I was always appreciative of you when you were there because you would always help out with some jackwagon decided to be cause trouble, and you were always there to help out.
Usually it was probably me. He's being nice. Oh man, that's great. Well, it's good to see you.
Yeah, so you're one of the busiest guys in CrossFit, but how did you even get involved in CrossFit?
I walked into a gym like so many people. I funny, and I was just starting to tell you this, I stopped drinking abruptly because I needed to, and changed my life, and I got into fitness, and this was I just had 10 years of sobriety in January.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And so I was back, doing things fitness wise, and just started to get bored with all the yoga, TRX stuff, just so repetitive. And then there's a gym down the street from my house, and I was like, shit, I'll try this. It was one of the original CrossFit gyms in the world. It was number 50.
Wow.
And but at the right time, right place, right time for me, because it was the start of the games getting really big, but the Open was this monumental annual thing that the gyms all celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked in the door on 12.1, and it was 7 minutes of burpees, and I dove in the workout. And funny enough, when you've done enough CrossFit, a lot of times your first workout can be demoralizing. It was uniquely, welcoming because it was just lay down and get up, and a bunch of people rooted for you. And I was like, this is badass. And I had a really fun time with it, and I was hooked. And so that's how I got into CrossFit. I literally I think if I had walked in and it was thrusters and pull-ups, I'd have been fuck this, I'm done. I can't do it, it just was the perfect entry for me, and I've been hooked ever since. Got in the business side, and the rest was history. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty much with me, I started at an Air Force base, and we were doing box jumps, and he's usually we have to do an on-ramp program, but you look pretty fit, so you're good. And I was like, all right, because I used to do the 300 workout and bro splits and all that crap, and I was like, I got to do something different. And so then I started doing that, and I got hooked because there's typically in a global gym you have people that say hello to each other, but they're pretty much headphones in, focus on what they're doing, and they don't have the camaraderie as for CrossFit.
That's honestly, that's what got its hooks in me was missing sports. And
yep.
I think back in those days when we were hanging out and spending time, we were playing softball and flag football, but it was just I was missing something, and that's it filled that. I was always such a big team sports guy. I played in college, and it completely filled that void. I was talking to somebody in the industry. There's just so much going on in the sport right now. We're all trying to get moving in the right direction. And what we've talked about missing is like, the regionals events were like these cool high school football scenes, like
Yeah. Yep.
small college football, university stuff, like big high school football type gatherings where it was like, 5 to 10,000 people screaming for just, local heroes, and like finding a way to sort of gravitate back towards that, which is, I think, where the scene's going. But it was, man, it's been a rough couple of years with it.
Yeah.
Still fun, but like it's starting to get moving in the back in the right direction.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a really cool couple of years for CrossFit with the new direction.
Very cool. But so I want to go back to your being sober. So you're 10 years in. So what was like the straw that broke the camel's back with your drinking?
It was probably you. No, no, it was. I mean, honestly, like, we're all young and like ran around crazy, which was like, it just like didn't stop for me. Honestly, I think I was like 33 and I was like doing the same things and, running around Boston too many nights a week. And it was, I just kind of like, I today, it was so hard at the time, but today, like, I'm so grateful for being able to identify that, like, I just didn't do well with it.
Yeah.
And being okay with it. It's like some people look at it and get sober and they're like embarrassed by it. Like, to me, it was like, hey, I tried really hard to figure that whole thing out and be social. And I just wasn't social. I was like, a full throttle drinker. It wasn't a problem for me. It was everybody around me. And then, eventually I woke up and I was like, this is like not the way I want to live. I had two young kids, an infant at the time. And I was like super functional, but like not functional at all for what my family saw or experienced. So it was just, it was time, honestly. Like, it was hard because I was, and we knew each other well back then. Like, I was so social and I was so, my community now is fitness. My community then was like the bar room.
Yeah.
And it was, a lot of my friends were there and it was a hard couple of years, but dude, it's like the best thing I've ever done. Honestly, I like look back at it now and it's like, what I identify most with is like, not, most people that have it in the right place, like drinking isn't even a thing. It's like, have a beer here and there, or, I could never do that. And so I'm grateful now that it's not a part of my life because it's super simple, like outdoor ski, run around with my kids.
Yep.
Like,
yeah,
I can beat myself up in other ways that are steering a little more towards healthy. But yeah, it's been a while. Like, I woke up and it was 10 years, honestly, and I wouldn't be doing anything I'm doing right now if I hadn't gotten sober. I can very confidently say that nobody would trust me.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be, in the position I'm in the sport. And so, yeah, it's been, it's funny. Like, and Matt Fraser's very open about his sobriety, but like he and I helped each other. Like, he helped me a lot. But, we laugh about it. Like, he's the fittest man in history. Like, I'm doing what I'm doing in the space with him. And, I don't know, 10 years ago, the two of us were like in a gutter, drinking beer. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to like, I'm not like a heavy drinker, but it's like, is it really worth having like one or two, like one random night? I don't think it's like, for me, I don't really think it's worth it, but it's just trying to say like, okay, just take the week off of drinking and then, see what happens. Just try to go like, week by week, but I don't know.
That's what I think. I think that's what I identified with most, in that, like, I would take weeks or two off and be like, but the point is like having to do that for me was the identification. It was like, why do I have to like monitor this? Mm-hmm. It's because I can't, that to me, and like, that's not speaking to you. It's just like, my piece was always like, well, if I'm trying to govern it, like, why do I need to govern it? Like, I have to abstain, because like that to me was the issue. It was like me having to constantly monitor, think about, worry about, decide if it's too much, what the right mix is. Like, all right, just cut it out.
Yeah.
That it's just too complex for me and I don't agree with it. So I kind of submitted. And it's like the whole, the AA thing is like, the powerless thing. And I identified with that. That's where AA came in for me. It was like, I am powerless because it's running my fucking life at this point.
Yeah.
And cutting it out, boom, like I was able to, get through all of being able to like not do it very quickly. And honestly, it's been years of just like now fast forwarding into like real positive stuff in my life, not having to worry about something I said the night before because I had too many beers, or
Mm-hmm.
like, I look at my career and the path, like there's a lot of social activity in our space. It's funny how little drinking goes on in the CrossFit space. It's actually something I observe often where I'm like, these guys, like I run Wadapalooza. I own a piece of Wadapalooza now. It's the biggest party in history. And like, nobody drinks.
No.
They drink, like the after party, but like, it's not like for me and what we experienced in Boston, that'd have been a puddle scene for 50,000 people.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a
Yeah.
different atmosphere. So yeah, it's I always like caution on my side. I don't sell it to anybody, but it was the right move for me.
Yeah.
And people who are wondering if they have an issue, like try not doing it for a long time, and it's like I think you'll probably figure it out off of that.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I mean, I thank you for talking about that too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I look at it completely from a perspective of if I can help somebody at this point, great.
Yeah.
Like, I've learned, and Matt's kind of taught some of this to me because he's been willing to be very open at maybe a sacrifice to how people perceive him. Maybe it looks like weakness. And he was very courageous in sharing that he was sober for a reason. And 5-6 years ago, and I was always like, dude, maybe you want to, like, it makes sense to me. Like,
Yeah.
I've now heard from people that have helped because I've spoken about it, and dude, I'm willing to share. Like, it is who I am. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So, so you started actually a clothing line, which that was pretty interesting, Redline Gear, a while back. So that was like when I realized I saw like the about page and I saw you working out, and I'm like this. Wait a second, he owns this thing? And so how did Redline come about?
It was just really quickly in the gym. Those days of like 2012 and 13 were like the incubation period of the sport, and then a lot of business around it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the businesses you see today that are, massive, probably billion dollar brands like Rogue or Noble or RX Bar was a brand built in a CrossFit gym. All were being birthed at that time. We all started together. Rogue was a little further along, but they're the largest fitness brand in the world at this point, and they're all born in an affiliate. And the same with what I was doing. It was just like I think everybody at the time was so passionate about it. The sport was growing, and it was such a cool community, and you were able to build some things that your community gym and then the surrounding would attach to and identify with. And I wanted I'd always been entrepreneurial in spirit, but never had the like stones to step out on my own.
Yeah.
And that was it. It was just kind of like, I'm going to do something while I'm doing something else and just see how this goes. And I think within like 4 or 5 months, I was in the insurance business. They were like, dude, you should do that. It's doing so well. We love what you do with us, but go, like you're ready. And that's kind of like, it was the biggest, I got sober, but like the biggest like thing I'd ever done for myself outside of getting sober was taking a chance on myself, because now knowing that and having done that, I've never been more comfortable in business and in my in my mindset around business, because I don't care if I ever have to start over again. I know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like, working for yourself, taking a chance on yourself gives you a lot of confidence in the current thing you're doing, and then what's next. Like I love what I do.
Yep.
And if I don't at any point, I'll just go do something else because I know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. So what made you actually stop Redline Gear? Was it just pretty much like being an agent to some of the CrossFit athletes and like Loud and Live? What made you stop?
Yeah, it was really that. Like I hit a pivotal point. I don't even know when it was. Like I was still doing Redline and being an agent in, say, like the beginning of 2018. And my current partners, Nelson and Marco, who started Loud and Live, asked me to consult on Wadapalooza. And I was still doing both at the time on my own. I had a thing called Team Group, which was my agency, and Redline. And I consulted them on just trying to like get them more. They bought Wadapalooza, were entertainment guys, Latin music guys. They loved the vibe of the brand and the event, but didn't have a lot of understanding of the community and space. And then they were kind of like transitioning with the current partners, the guys that had established it, Guido and Steve. And that's really kind of was the transitional period. I consulted and then flew down there like a couple weeks after the event, and they were like, dude, we want to, buy your agency, merge you. Like, we want to figure out how we do this. Like, we would really like you to start, being heavily involved in Wodapalooza. And I was kind of shocked at the time because I'd always saw my path being, more agent side of the business with, talent, and then, merging into other markets. Like, how do I get into football, baseball, things like that. And I was a huge fan of Wodapalooza. Like, I was, a brand that I had been there with my brand. I'd been there with athletes. I had been there as a fan. So I consumed the event on a lot of angles. And I'm like uniquely, I think probably like delusional confident sometimes. And they're like, can you run this? And I was like, you know what? I can. I know how to do this. And it's like, partner with people. Like, I can get people that I trust and that trust me to come and take a chance on this. So I merged with those guys. And then at the time, it was just kind of like, I can't do all this anymore. Something had to give. And I basically just, decided that it was time to like put Redline to rest. It was like one of those things where I was like, could I sell it? Probably, but it wasn't enough to make sense of me living. I was so attached to the brand consumer facing that it was something I didn't want to endure somebody else operating in a certain way, and I didn't have control, but I might even suffer any of the consequences of it,
Yeah.
So I just, I steered all my, stuff in one direction and merged with these guys, and, it's been a crazy few years.
Yeah, very cool. And I know your first client was Matt because I believe I said in another podcast that he had a contract that he wanted you to read because he didn't really trust anybody else. And so
That was it.
Yeah. And so how did like going from, being an agent to Matt to becoming more like an agent for a couple of like high profile CrossFit athletes?
Yeah, because the Matt work was more of like friend helping friend, honestly, at the beginning. And he didn't like, it was less that even. It's kind of funny. We laugh about it today because we're just like so aligned with each other and, doing so many things together. But when, at the beginning, it was like he trusted me more than anyone else. He didn't trust me. It was one of those type of things where like his parents were professional athletes. They actually had a bad experience with an agent. At one point, they were professional skaters.
Yeah.
A tour. And so I had like a big hurdle to overcome with him just from perception. It had nothing to do with me. And his parents, who were sort of advisors at that time. He was a young kid, he was in his early 20s, and he had no designs on being a professional CrossFitter. He was like most focused on like, okay, this crazy guy wants to sponsor me, and then I can chase these, $2,000 to $5,000 paychecks at local gyms around the country and make some money, and I'm going to get my engineering degree and get a job. And I was like a geek on the sport. And I'm watching him, and I'm like, I watched him at regionals this year. I had nothing to do with him, and I'm like, this kid is friggin' badass. And I've always like been a talent guy. Like I've always like loved sport and analyzed. Like I know a lot about hockey. I've never played hockey. Like it's always just been something I've been interested in. And he was an athlete I sponsored and started to get stuff pushed his way. And he was like, all right, dude, like your wife's a lawyer. Like, can you just look at this thing for me and tell me what you think about it? And I think the time was like a supplement contract, and I was like, dude, that is obscene. Like, I do not sign that. And that's how it started. And really what was built was his trust in me, and there were no agents in the space, and people would be like, wow, like really what happened is he got a Nike deal, and like there's a huge story behind that. But that was a time at which I encouraged him to go get an agent because I thought I was over my skis at that point. And I was like, listen. And he's like, dude, I trust you. Like, let's do this. And I had a mentor that did basketball and golf. And so I picked people's brains, and he was really happy about it and proud of it. And people wanted to be with Nike at the time because he was the only one really. And so they'd be like, hey, how'd you get that deal? And he would be like, go talk to O'Keefe. And then I became like, I just started getting like calls from all the major athletes, and it was like a first to market. And the thing I'm most proud of is the retention. Like all my clients are still my clients, and we're still getting all the opportunities on that side in a lot of ways. And, it's been a lot of work since then to get where we are, because I knew nothing at the time.
Yeah.
I cut teeth on Matt. And, that's dangerous and scary at the same time because this is this kid's life. He's not retired and, he'll work, but like doesn't need to. And I'm really proud of that. And, yeah, it really started with that. And honestly, him being my biggest fan is really how everything kind of got snowballed rolling down the hill. It was really cool.
Yeah, very cool. And so you started becoming a, someone to watch over Wadapalooza, like you said before, just like like a someone to consult. So what made you get involved into? I know Loud and Live bought your agency and stuff, but what made you wanted to do more like sanctional events, like the West Coast
Yeah,
Classic?
yeah. So it was there was a lot of turmoil in the space, right? So I merged at the beginning of 18. Regionals happened, and then it's funny, like all the shit hit the fan at the games that year in 18.
Yeah.
Like there was new CEO, Jeff Kane, and like there was big change coming. And then I was at HQ and talking to them about like some of the future of the way things look, and like we might be interested in doing more. Never been in the event space. I hadn't even had a full Wadapalooza under my own belt at that point, as an operator.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like it was sort of like a buyer's market. Like there was a free for all at that point, and we run hundreds of concerts, festivals. Like I was, and my partners were like, "Go, we can do a really good job with this." So we went to them and we're just like, "Hey, if there are opportunities, we love them." So we started new events in Spain, California, which was a great market that just didn't have an event. Mexico, and then we bought Granite Games, which was probably the second largest event in the world, over the last 10 years. But the event space, so traditional sports marketing would be similarly to how we're structured. We're just like highly visible. So it looks weird to like a very passionate space and, sometimes conflicting. Like he owns events and he manages athletes and he represents brands on marketing. Well, so does IMG, and so does Octagon, and so does Wasserman. Like these big agencies do it, but they get a pass because they, work with LeBron James and they own, they work with Tiger and they own golf events. Like nobody, like the optics are different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're doing what everybody does in the sport marketing world. So it was a natural progression because the ecosystem supports itself. Like we do. Our foundation is athletes. It's an athlete first business. And, all these things support the ecosystem. These events support brands support athletes support events. And we all kind of raise the tide together, and we've earned and gained a lot of trust in the market from all those pillars. Other event organizers, athletes, are always our go-to. And, we try to build sound events for athletes, spectators, partners, and volunteers. So everybody has quality experience, and we just try to like move in the right direction, and so it's a natural progression. It looks abnormal to the non-educated observer that wouldn't understand the sports marketing world.
Yeah, and it's not like you're doing the programming, so.
Oh, me no.
No.
Like honestly, it's like it's kind of the one thing that comes up every year, and it's like, do I know what the workouts are before we press go on it? Yeah, but like I had at the time for a long time, and now it's over because Matt's retired. I was uniquely attached to Matt's camp. So I was very read in on a daily basis on Matt. And so I've always pointed in that direction on the sport where it was like somebody else program. At one year, we had all the coaches program.
Mm-hmm.
Another year we had a couple advise, and I've got a guy, Dylan, who's, my right-hand man that's amazing at it. He's been in the sport for 10 years. I don't get involved in that shit. Like it's one of those things where it's like we do a really good job with it. I want the optics to be proper on that. I could get involved in that and it would be fine because I know I would do things above board, but I don't because I don't want anybody to think, well, by the way, on the floor at any given time in a heat, there's probably 5 of our athletes, but everybody trusts that we do the right thing, and the results prove it. People have a good experience, they're balanced tests. Nobody knows the workouts. Matt doesn't compete at our events, which it wouldn't matter anyway. He's just so talented.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what programming is, but so yeah, I mean, no, I don't dabble in programming. There are other people that are far better at that than I.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to work on becoming a better programmer, but it's like there's like so much information coming from all over the place. You're like, okay, I need to do this or this, but it's like just stick to the basics pretty much.
I do. I program for myself, which isn't, but I think it's what, like I've learned so much over the last 10 years. I don't like I'll grab workouts from Comp Train, from Proven, from Matt's program, whatever it might be, to just like, something I like. But then like if there's a barbell in it, like I'll lighten it up, or I'll even take it out and put like an object in. I know where like I don't want to wake up and not be able to put my arms over my head. I used to do it crazy.
Yeah.
Like I've eliminated a lot of kipping because of my shoulders. I do a lot of burpees, a lot of machines. It's funny. Like I think a lot of people would benefit from what I do, but I don't think a lot of people would be attracted to what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone wants to see the heavy weights and they want to lift the heavy weights. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. So I'm like, I've never lifted as much as I have ever till like this year. And so it's just like, all right, I want to keep on going. I've hit my PR and I'm like, okay, maybe go up another 10 more pounds. But I'm like 41 and it's like, I'm still feeling pretty good, but it's just like, when's the point where I need to realize like, all right, I need to taper it down a little bit.
You know what the answer is it's always personal on that side. Cause like I have a lot of friends, like I'm, they're 43 and, I've run in the Masters Comp Train system, and had a lot of fun comparing workouts with friends around the world and like, competed. And there's a crowd of people I ran with that are still going at it hard.
Yeah.
This kid Mike Dudawar owns my gym in Swampscott that I go to that still competes at a high level. He is a borderline games athlete. And he and I used to be like very competitive with each other. Like I just don't do it. Like for me, it came down to like I needed to value how I felt on a daily basis. And he is healthy. Like his shoulders are healthy, his knees are healthy. He moves really well. So do I. I just have some things that like when I start to load up a lot, like they start to bother me. Like my knees, because I played football and, and I banged myself up and baseball and my shoulder's a mess. It is what it is. You just got to like take care of yourself. If you're feeling good lifting, like I have friends that that'll come to my garage and work out that are like 55 years old that are, doing, 5 sets of 5 with 400 pounds on a deadlift. And it's like, I used to do that stuff, but it's like, you know what? I will be sore like the next day, unhealthy sore. Like, because my hip hurts or something. It's like, you know what? You just got to do what's best for you.
Yeah. And you want to be functional throughout the whole day, like you've talked about. So it's, yeah, I completely agree. So, obviously with all of like the whole changes of the new CEO and all that stuff, like with the, George Floyd and the COVID issue that, Greg Glassman did. So, what did you guys like? What did your team talk about like when that happened?
Yeah, it was that was a crazy time.
Oh my God, insane!
I was in Tampa with Matt. He was visiting Alex Guerrero from TV12, and I remember we were sitting there with Alex, and that thing popped over, and it was like, holy cow! Like to know even what would transpire after seeing that, you could have never predicted it. But I mean, our immediate reaction was, I think a lot of people outside would have been like, wow, a lot of people aggressively reacted, but I don't think people have enough history to understand what the reaction meant to us, what our reaction was sort of derived from. There was a lot of build up to that, and there's a lot of great people at CrossFit HQ still there that, and we're all working in the right direction and together, and I'm really excited about where they're going. But at the time it was a lot of pain. Like there was a lot of, weird stuff that was going on, and it was like a sort of straw that broke our back. I think for a lot of people, and, we're excited about the change that happened. A new guy is there as a leader, Eric. He's an awesome guy. And I think he'll, make a lot of great changes that will be highly successful for all the people in the ecosystem. It doesn't matter in or out of the system, brands, gyms. But at the time, it was a really stressful, heavy time, and a lot of, arguing, back and forth about like reaction and why so aggressive from certain people that, were internal, saying like, well, I'm here. And it's like, yeah, but, there's a bigger problem here. That's culture that needs to change. And I give them a lot of credit because there's a lot of people now there that have adopted the new culture and change. But at the time, it was warranted. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that on the outside, which was like, why did the athletes react so aggressively? Like, why did the event organizers peel out immediately and not have a conversation? It was because a lot of people had it with, the current leadership at the top.
Yeah. Yep.
And kind of how culture was structured. And, it's been a long haul, to the point we're at today, but I wouldn't change it because I think we're in a really good place.
Good. And I know COVID put a damper on a lot of the sanctions that you had planned. So what's your plan for 2021?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We're in the midst of trying to figure it out. We're hoping to have, some involvement in the season, yet to be determined, but, hopefully finalizing soon with some of our events. Wodapalooza will go back to January. We're not going to do it this year.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But we're going to do it again in January 22. And, it's sort of the way the event season is structured now. It'll live outside the system, but it will be I think it'll be a nice, showcase event. We'll put a lot of prize money up. It's where it used to be in the system. Like, it never lived as part of the season. So we're excited. Like, I think we're going to grow that event massively. Like, we're going to start to add powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman. We want to add a road race. And then the evolution is like more sports downline. That like 3-on-3 basketball, beach volleyball. Like, we want to build a really inclusive fitness week in Miami. Over the next 3 to 5 years. And so we're really putting a lot of energy towards that. And then, anything we're involved with the season, we believe in, the sport and want to support it, and are excited to be a part of it. I wish I had something to report today other than, right now it's probably going to be finalized in the next week, how that looks. But there's going to be open. They're going to peel 10% of that out and put them in a quarterfinal.
Yep.
That will move into a semifinal phase, which will be 10 global events, which will be structured a lot like what regionals used to be like.
Okay.
And those events will be global events that were part of the sanctional season. So they'll take 10 of the 25 sanctionals and insert them as semifinals. So
very cool.
Hoping to have some involvement there, and then it's a year that we need to get through on the event side. It's like, a tough year because I think a lot of us in March last year would have pointed towards this time this year and been like, all right, well, we'll just get back to there. We can get back to business. And it's going to be a while. We're probably looking at Miami in January of 22 being like probably the next big time. Our crowd, in Q4 and Q1, basically, that the crowd can get back together the way that they like to, which is, probably still with masks on, but, not worrying about numbers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm like, I do this daydreaming all the time of like, just let it be 2 years from now, back to normal, because it's going to be a while, unfortunately. But I think we're becoming a better, stronger business unit and a better system, for all of this. And there's a lot of suffering and pain involved in that. That's unfortunate that, I wish we could change. There's people closing gyms. There's events that are folding. There's athletes that aren't able to train anymore and got to go take jobs. We all have our plight, and we've got to get through it. We're trying to support each other, and the next 6 months are going to be tight.
Yeah,
it's going to be tight for the system. We'll be okay. There's a lot of positivity. The games was amazing. That just pulling that off was a victory. Even some people are like, oh, it was weird, 5-5. Like, it didn't matter what we did. Like, we were there. People were competing together. They crowned a world champion. They found the right people. So it would be great this year if that event looked like at least 40 athlete, male, female on the floor competing against each other for the title, so that it's more normalcy. Which I think is a possibility. It'll just be a stretch to think that, we'll have 20,000 people a day in Madison.
Yeah, I hear you. So my Zoom was trying to screw with me right now, so we have 5 minutes left.
Let's do it.
So I typically do an hour, but for some reason it wants me to upgrade right now, so I'm getting screwed off of this. So, I have so many other questions to ask you, but I usually
we can do it again sometime.
Okay, I appreciate it. So, one of the questions is, so do you have like a favorite book? So these are like the last 4 questions. So, do you have like a favorite book you like to read at all?
like to read. It's usually I love a lot of Malcolm Gladwell stuff.
Yep.
Outliers is a really good book. I like. I've read all his books. I don't really have a go-to. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like, I love Rogan's podcasts. I love a lot of endemic podcasts in our space. There's a lot of great minds in our space.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of. I like to listen to Matt. I like to listen to Ben. I like to listen to Shane, Tia. But yeah, I'm not your book guy.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's on my 21 bucket list to start to get. I have some goals for a book a quarter, which is a lot for me. My books are emails, so I try to get through my 200 emails a day.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I will tell you on the book side, I like to be entertained with books. I like to consume, growth and knowledge and inspiration through people.
Yeah.
I like to listen to people speak and inspire and, talk about their experience. I don't generally, read a lot. Like, I like to be entertained when I read. Like, I like to read a good story, like not 4-hour work week or read all that stuff. And it's like, to me, it's like great, but that doesn't light my fire.
Yeah, I hear you. So do you have any goals that you want to hit by the end of the year?
Yeah, a big goal for me is to be to grow Wadapalooza. That's our 21 goal. Funny enough, it's a 22 event, but for 21, we want to show up to a full-fledged event. As a business, we want to show up to a full-fledged event, full capacity, expand the event to 5 new disciplines, and really start to open up and include more people in that event. That's a big goal, and then execute a couple of our events as a part of the season. Hopefully, those are 2 big business goals to be present, really, right?
Yeah.
And then use these times that are stressful for us as a business to grow, right? And so that's the big Wadapalooza piece, which is we got this time. Normally, we drink through a fire hose 12 months a year. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're executing 5 events. Athletes are all over the world doing appearances. We're flying all over the globe. Other events that they're competing at. We have marketing business we care for. We want to do a good job for the people, our partners, brands we care for, but, really take the time to be mindful about how when we get back to some sort of normalcy, we're ready to go.
Yeah, very cool. That Wadapalooza is one of my bucket lists to go to. So.
Down. Well, you need to make sure you get in touch with me. All the hell that I've raised in your presence, you need to, when you're coming, I'll be offended if you don't let me know you're coming. I want to make sure we take care.
I will. Don't worry. So, once again, thank you for taking the time, and I'm sorry I have to cut it short because the Zoom upgrade just spawned on me. So,
we'll do it again sometime, dude. It's great to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having fun. Appreciate it.
All right, you too. All right, thank you very much.